everyone, and welcome to A Gem of a Secret podcast. My name's Donatella My Secrets.
And my name is Coco Gem Holiday, listeners.
How are you doing tonight, Coco?
I have all of the emotions.
All of the emotions?
All of them. I chose all of them. That is my journey. Respect it. I am valid.
Yeah, I feel like that's something we were saying to each other a lot last night.
Yeah.
When we watched this.
We watched We're Here, the HBO special featuring Shangela Laquifa Watley.
And it was the season 2 finale.
Bob the Drag Queen and Eureka O'Hara.
Yes.
Yeah, we watched the season 2 finale, which featured 3 trans individuals from Grand Junction, Colorado.
Yeah. My hometown, your last place of residence for the last decade.
Such a long time that was.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean the last decade prior to 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I moved out of Grand Junction. We moved out of Grand Junction 2 years ago.
Yeah, it'll be 3 for me in March.
Oh, that's so crazy.
Isn't that
to think
insane?
About. So that is crazy.
Yeah.
Good heavens.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like 3 years sometimes.
Yeah. So we're gonna be talking about our reactions to the episode of We're Here, and I think I watched the first and second episode of Think of We're Here this season.
Yeah.
And this one, so like the whole journey and whatever. But before we do that, Donna, what are you wearing this evening?
I'm actually dressed as a big gold fairy. If you saw the episode, everybody, that was one of the first things that one of our lovely Grand Junction locals said to
Big gay fairy.
all of the hosts of We're Here.
Oh God. Yeah, I wore. I'm also wearing gold.
Yeah,
but I have fairy wings.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's why I did that.
You went really literal.
I went super literal.
Yeah.
I just didn't have a lot of creative juices left in me. So yeah, we watched the episode of We're Here.
Yeah.
The second it started, before we even get into the episode, we saw the monument, and I do miss the monument.
Yeah, it started with them on the monument, and that skit they did with Eureka falling off was...
I think that's how she hurt herself, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know who hikes the monument in heels.
Oh my God.
That was a choice. And I know that they probably didn't, but it sounds like she probably just fell.
Look at Shangela's Instagram. She's standing, like, on the edge of a cliff, like, on a rock just on the monument, in these, like... 6-inch plus heels, like with the platform. It's probably higher than 6 inches, but yeah, she's standing there just on the monument without like a hand railing around. Like it's literally on a rock that's like a cliff is just beyond that, and she's just standing there posing for photos and stuff on the Colorado National Monument.
She is dumb. That's what that.
Yeah. Audience, if you didn't know this, a lot of people die at the monument.
A lot of people die.
Yeah.
A lot.
Whether it's they go to the potholes and like drown, or they accidentally fall, or they accidentally drive off, or they purposely drive off. Like
a lot of people die.
There's a lot of people who have died up there over the years. So that's a little scary.
Yeah, that is scary. Which kind of makes sense for the skit that they did.
Yeah.
Should have put a trigger warning on that.
Yeah.
For that city.
Yeah.
The very next scene, actually, they're just showing, because Bob makes a comment about how, like, Blue Lives Matter-y it is up there.
Yeah.
And what's interesting about that is, like, so for some of our listeners, because a lot of you are in Portland, so Deputy Greer died in the line... Gear.
I think, yeah.
Died in the line of duty up there. And we've talked about it on the episode before. And so there was this, like, Gear Strong, Blue Lives Matter thing that everybody had on their cars. And it wasn't really problematic. It wasn't really for support of police as much as it was in solidarity with an officer who died in the line of duty. And so there's just a lot of Blue Lives Matter stuff specifically because of that.
Even prior to the movements that, it was before we even moved here. There was so much of that. And a lot of the budget, like in a lot of cities, goes to the police. And that's just how it is there. There's a lot of police in Grand Junction. It's a very policed
There's a
city.
lot of police in Grand Junction. And the funny thing about it is, like, the police in Grand Junction, though problematic in their own right, When I was part of Black Lives Matter in Grand Junction, I met with the police chief on several occasions, and we did joint programming together. This isn't to say the police in every city, like, people really should recognize the police in every city are not directly the same. In Grand Junction, you have to think about it. When there's not any black people to necessarily even harass, why would police be an issue for black people in that city?
Yeah.
It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
That's like going down the street and like seeing a dog and be like, I'm gonna kick that dog. Like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, so with that, the next scene was specifically about like they showed a Confederate flag waving, which I think I actually even know where that flag is, which is funny.
Is it at the store that's off of Horizon Drive? That one, like,
no,
pool shop? Oh, okay.
I think that was the one that's near Rocket Park.
Not Horizon Drive. North Avenue. That's the one I was thinking of. The pool place. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think it's from there. But but I haven't seen a Confederate flag on a flagpole in a long time.
I know, it's been like since
I lived there.
Lived in Grand Junction.
Yeah, people are active.
It was commonplace there. Yeah. I feel validated in my feelings of the place that I grew up after watching the episode. I think there is a lot of beauty there, but I definitely I think a lot of people would always, when I talked about moving, would be like, oh, it's not so bad here, or would like try and like talk Grand Junction up like it is better than it actually is. And now being removed there from almost 3 years and watching that episode, I'm like, damn, it really is just as homogeneously like white and heterosexual and older people as I always believed it was, you know? Like it's a very hard place to be anyone who is different. Yes.
And what's fascinating to me is so Angie, one of the people that they selected to be do the drag show in the episode, Angie posted online, I think that she was the one who on her Facebook, but anyway, they were at I believe Charlie Dwellington's, and there was a picture of like all the people like at the showing, and because I live in Portland now, like the photo looked whiter than usual to me. And I say that because, like, obviously, like when I lived there, Grand Junction was 69,000 roughly white people. Sorry, no, in the city.
City limits.
Yeah, in the city limits of Grand Junction, 69,000 people, and 420 something of them were black.
Yeah.
So obviously, it's safe to say, and then like obviously the black queer people, there was like 5.
Yeah.
And yeah, like so, like seeing that photo, it just was really alarming that this is where I was at for such a long time, that it was just an abundance of white, and you just got used to it because you lived there for so long. And then looking back at that photo, I was like, good grief.
Yeah.
Like, my word.
Yeah. It really is so damn white there. And yeah, and also just some context for our listeners too about Grand Junction. So there was one part where they're in Palisade, and they were asking about like if it's a separate city from Grand Junction, and yeah, it is. But when we say like the city of Grand Junction and the Grand Valley, so the Grand Valley makes up like Palisade, Grand Junction, and Fruita and other surrounding areas. But when we say like city of Grand Junction, that's like literally in the city limits.
The thing is, I know that this is our starting off like incredibly heavy, but I have positive things to say about the episode. A lot of positive things to say about the episode. Yeah. But it was, my reaction is based off of my feelings towards the thing I saw, which is funny. Even in the first 5 seconds, the woman walking down the street in a blue shirt, I used to work with her.
Yeah, that's what you said. It's wild. Like, even the people that were extras, we were like, oh, yeah, yep, we know. I know some of these. That's that person.
That's that person.
Yeah.
And there are moments that I do miss Grand Junction in the sense, but it's only for comfortability. It's always comfort. Like when I'm doing something so new in Portland, it just makes me miss Grand Junction because I was so used to it because I lived there for a decade.
And you know what to expect.
You know what to expect. You don't have to be awkward. You don't have to be uncomfortable. So those moments, like, so looking at Main Street, I always liked walking down Main Street during the day when I was hanging up posters for drag shows.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, and so like watching them walk down the Main Street, I was like, oh, I kind of miss Main Street.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there are parts of Main Street that I miss. I went down there with my family when I was just there in October for my mom's birthday, and yeah, I didn't get to go down all of Main Street like I normally do, but it is still very pretty, and I think that Grand Junction can be a good place with some generational turnover. Let's just say that. I think like the younger generation, if they have more stuff like this kind of like going through there and like just really like there is more youth influence in Grand Junction, I feel like it could be a really great place. But unfortunately, like it is very much so controlled by a lot of white older people who are retired there.
It is. And Grand Junction it's funny because it's a college town and it's also a retirement community.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I was part of BLM, we had long talks and discussions about how, why people were graduating and not staying. Now, I was a person who graduated and I stayed.
You were one of the very rare cases.
Yes, because like what happened was like I got a job almost in my field, so that's why I came back. And then there were some people that are still there that are seeming to thrive, and they are in the queer community, and I graduated with them.
Yeah.
And that's great, honestly, if you can figure out a way to make that work for you. But a majority of the people who stay and make it work do tend to be white.
Yeah.
I will say.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, getting into the episode a little bit, they choose, what I do appreciate the fact that they chose, like, everybody in the show that was highlighted was like non-binary or trans.
Yeah, trans non-binary. I loved that. Like because that is such a like hidden community in Grand Junction as well. Like all of the LGBT community is sort of hidden in Grand Junction.
Yeah.
But I mean especially being trans and kind of after a while not really getting the recognition and like the alphabet soup that we are for LGBT.
Yeah, it's overwhelmed. Like the soup is really big in Portland, but being in Grand Junction, the soup existed. It just wasn't seen.
Yeah.
Except for like at Pride events.
Yeah,
and,
you'd mostly see like lesbians and gays.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we did have close friends who were trans when we lived there.
Yeah.
So what's interesting too is that the people that they chose, because I know that like I've had a couple of people tell me that like, you know, there was a list of people that they like went through and they chose these people, and I think that makes a lot of sense to keep it in that trans non-binary section, and that was kind of cool
For sure.
I think not related to, but the story I think that pulled mostly on my heartstrings was Angie's story.
Yeah.
More so than any of the other stories. Not that I diminishing those experiences, but it just was beautiful.
Yeah.
Like from
it really
start
was.
to finish.
Yeah. And that's the only person that they covered that I didn't know out of the three that I hadn't met previously. And her story was just so beautiful, and it was really cool to see how she had gotten the confidence to like get up there and perform at the end when it was something that was completely out of her comfort zone.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I thought it was also interesting how a lot of the people said that their introduction to the queer community was through drag shows.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to discount anybody, because it could have been like some of Javi's drag shows or whatever that they went to. I'm pretty sure they were ours.
Yeah.
But, and I don't know for certain, but the reality, Dustin's I know was ours. But the reality of the situation is I think it's really cool. When I heard that, actually, I got a little like sentimental.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people's first drag show ever was something that we created.
Yeah.
Because we had a monthly drag show.
Yeah.
For a long time.
Went on for a long time, and there were times when we had very packed houses.
So many people.
Mm-hmm.
So many people.
There were really good nights for us there, and we kept it going for a while, and yeah, it was really cool. And I would get people occasionally that would come up to me and be like, I hope that you all know that like how much you impact people, even though they don't tell you. Like just because people don't tell you, like you don't really realize how much you impact people just by being present and being here.
Yeah, I remember those conversations, and it's still hard to believe.
Yeah.
Our haters were very loud, and
usually came from within our own community.
Yeah, within our own community, and our supporters were always like super on the outs. But like, even when BLM started, like when the BLM movement took off last year, when we were doing the protests in Portland, I got a lot of messages from people in Grand Junction about all of the work that I did when I was there, and like just people wondering how they could support and recognizing that I was correct. And then even like my old supervisor at Hilltop had mentioned that they had dialogues about me in like higher up meetings and stuff that I was saying, and like, and the messages that I was trying to push. But even in the queer community side, like I had people reach out to say that, you know, it's different without you all here, without you and Donovan here. Like that was just really eye-opening to me. Yeah, and a lot of us have left. A lot of people have. A lot of very like talented people have either like left Grand Junction after being there for a long time, or it's been like kind of a passing through point for them. Like people that come to mind for me are obviously you and I, Livy, Gina, Rain, Odette. Yeah. A lot of people, like for them, like Grand Junction was just too difficult to thrive in. It was difficult to thrive in. And people were always like on the verge of moving, which is kind of interesting. Like people always just wanted out. As much as possible. And I think, and on that same point, it's really interesting to watch strangers in that place and seeing the beauty of it, because I do remember the beauty of it. And then, I mean, the monument, the opening scene, just in general, there's a lot of physical beauty there and natural beauty there. Yeah, I still want a Black Friday shop there. But seriously, like there have been a lot of people that left. Like pretty much every single board member of my BLM has also left. Yeah. Right. Like that's really eye-opening that these people who are trying to create these systemic changes just keep getting ran out of town, because I was once called a weakling because they're like, well, you didn't stay and fight. And I'm like, I stayed and fought for years. I fought my entire fucking life. I'm done fighting. I want to be a witch out in the fucking Oregon woods. Like, I don't want to fucking, I mean, yeah. I got I helped get that inclusivity proclamation passed. Like, get away from me. Like, thank you. We were regularly harassed. Consistently. Yeah, I was a victim of a hate crime. A lot of shit happened there that wasn't so great. Like, and they say, you know, like, don't be like a victim of your like circumstances or whatever. But you know what? It was pretty fucking hard to exist there. It was. And to be happy and to not like want to drink myself to death. Which, look at me here now. You know, like I'm thriving. I'm healing. I'm becoming a better person now that I left that place and that toxicity. Yeah. I think we both are. Yeah, I'm definitely thriving. And actually, as I think about it, I've been super rude. Donna, how are you doing this evening? Well, Coco, I will let you know after this brief break. It's a podcast with Coco and Donna, podcast. Tune into What They Tell You podcast. Check it out. With Coco and Donna, podcast. Check it out. Well, Coco, I'm also thriving. That's what we left off on. I know. That's so you were like, I'm thriving. Actually, I've been rude. How are you? Coco, I'm thriving. I'm doing great. Yeah. So we're talking about our trauma in Grand Junction. as often this podcast turns into sometimes. Yeah, we should just rename it to that. Let's talk about our Grand Junction trauma. Because, so, during the episode, and I know people probably at this point are thinking it's like a little bit heartless. It was supposed to be focusing on Angie, Taylor, and Dustin. Yeah. For our podcast. And I recognize, like, I want to talk about that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I do. I want to talk about them and their journey and how impactful that was to so many people. But there were other things in the background that I think is actually going to be interesting for the listeners. Because you can watch the episode and get everything that you want to see out of those three individuals, because that's what the show is highlighting. I want to talk about the things that were surrounding all of those things that were also happening at the same time.
Yeah.
So, for instance, the Pride Festival.
Yes, we need to unpack this.
Because the amount of people that I recognized was, well, actually, that's not surprising. I recognized a lot of people. Yes. I did see my ex-husband.
Yep.
On stage. I did, like, see Carly.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we saw Caleb.
Yep.
Actually, not at the Pride Festival.
I think there was a clip of him there, too. He was the featured...
He was the featured gay in all of those scenes.
The featured, gay extra. I mean, he had a speaking part too, so that was cool for him.
Yeah, that was incredibly traumatizing. We'll get to that in a little bit. But so the Pride Festival. Now, we explained this on the podcast before, but I know a lot of people are tuning in ever since we talked about Local Lounge, and so people probably haven't listened to our past episodes. So, real briefly. In 2 past episodes, one, Donna talks about her experiences with the Pride Festival, and she actually posted a video online.
I did.
About how she felt hurt by the Colorado West Pride organization.
Yeah. They didn't treat local performers really well for a long time, and I don't know if they still are. It was really hard to feel like we were, like... anything really to them. Like, you think that local pride organizations would embrace their local talent and try to get them involved in things, and there was a lot of like conflicts with them, and it was always like a power struggle to like fight for like stage time. Did we get it? Yes. We did,
but we had to
fight for it
consistently, and it was just horrific having to go through those experiences and not feel valued. So the reason that me and Donna and Natalie and even Stella got featured was because we raised money to bring out headliners every year. That's how we were involved. Now, all of that is to say that was in a past episode. And then the secondary thing that's in a past episode is I was actually fired from the Pride Board. Or pushed out is how I like to think about it. Because of the vice president at the time, actually the event manager at the time. And so because of just some situations that happened. But like, so watching that, me and Donna actually made a vow to each other that we wanted to move before the next CWP Colorado's Pride event.
And we did.
We did. Well, actually, Donna got out. I didn't make it in time, but I was like on my way out. Anyway, so watching the Pride Festival is incredibly triggering for both of us. One of our pictures that we have with me, Natalie, Donna, and Adam is actually wearing our little black and white outfits at the last Pride Festival we performed at together. Yeah,
that was the last one that we were all performing at together, and that was the year when things were really bad. That was the Pride after I made the whole video.
Right. Yeah. And they refused to say my full drag name once the entire festival.
Yeah. And then they scratched our names off on the set list in the basement for the Rainbow Party. And didn't give us a call time. And and
it was only supposed to just be me and Donna, but we included
Adam and Natalie.
So that was...
It was our fuck you.
It was our F you moment. It was great. So, watching the festival, it actually was really beautiful to see, like, all the, like, camaraderie and, like, to see the people and to see, like, the moments that they filmed and whatever. And I guess it was in a parking garage, probably the Two Rivers parking garage is what it looks like. And I think it's, like, probably because of COVID related and something like that, even though Eureka made a comment that it's really sad that it's hidden away. It was never really hidden away. It was always out in public.
It was always out in public. Like, there was always a parade and stuff. I think the community in general is very hidden away. I think that in a lot of ways, the Pride organization, and we weren't the only ones who felt jilted or you know, like we had been done wrong by the Colorado West Pride organization.
Right.
When I posted my video, I got a lot of DMs from people feeling threatened by some of the organizers, feeling like they were made to feel very uncomfortable at a lot of the events. And so it, you know, like I think it was kind of what I was going back to in the first part when I said that our own community is often like a lot of the fights that we were having. And that was true for just the community in general, the LGBT community in Grand Junction in general.
Right.
There was a lot of infighting, and then there was just like a lot of like, there wasn't really a lot of like celebration about being queer. I've never felt so celebrated being queer in a place like I am now, and coming from a place that is like the exact opposite of where I am now, I can see how vast like the differences are.
Yes. And I remember, well, because obviously since I got kicked out to a degree, and they'll probably say that I quit, but I didn't quit. I said, should I just quit if this is how you all, you know, are acting? And then they just kicked me out.
Yeah.
And I remember there was a threatening post online, and at the time I think Sergio was like the vice president or something like that. And like he wrote a post online, a very threatening post to me. He's like, I know, like I can ruin your name and blah blah blah, like all this stuff.
I remember that.
He deleted it. I saved it. Receipts or everything. And sent me that threatening thing online, attacking me and stuff like that. And it's just because like it was so weird how that city, like people just never wanted to be able to get along with drag artists. Like it was awkward and stuff. And even so, and even on the side of how powerful the story was, and even though they weren't featured, like me and Javi never really had the best of relationships.
No.
Like I think we did when I first like started doing drag, but like I have a lot of trauma associated with that person.
I do too. With a lot of the people there. But yeah, I have a lot of traumas associated with the conflicts that I was having with people there. And I do want to acknowledge that since I've been there, I am able to kind of look back and see areas where I was a really shitty person too, because I don't think that I was very present when I was in Grand Junction. I don't think that I think I was taking out a lot of my traumas on other people and drinking and doing that. And I don't know. I think because now for me it is almost 3 years ago, I am like upset about things and processing things, but I'm also able to kind of look back and be like, damn, like I also could have been better in this situation too. But that was also for me because I was like drinking very heavily. And I feel like me when I was under the influence of alcohol is very different from me now, where I'm a lot calmer and able to kind of like use critical thinking to handle my my issues and stuff. But
well, that's one thing that's kind of different about Portland versus Grand Junction. Like people in people in Portland have the ability, oftentimes will get there to see their own wrongdoing.
Yeah.
Right? Like in Grand Junction, people never got there. Like it was hard for people to understand like the way you treated another individual in the queer community. Like usually there was never any like makeup pattern that ever seemed to happen, and people would repeat the same patterns and styles that continued hurting you in the first place.
And like it got worse. It would get
worse.
It would
often.
get escalated and more vindictive, and sometimes I was the one escalating it. But
so for those of you out there, Javi is the trans man in the episode, the older one who was hosting a lot of the shows.
Yeah,
because I don't think they really did because they didn't do a shoot on him.
No, they didn't. I mean, in the extra scene they talked about the Van Dykes and how it's a big drag family on the western slope of Colorado. Yeah, they talked about the Van Dykes. Yeah,
so, yeah, they're the head of that family, and so and this isn't specifically like I respect also. Actually, it's a podcast, and we said that we would get real about this. There are two things I want to say about Javi specifically. So a friend of mine posted, like, when I heard about we're here filming and whatever, somebody had wrote online about all the stuff that Javi's done for the community and, like, and how great he is and, like, all these other things and whoop-de-whoop-de-whoop. And I actually unfollowed that person
Yeah.
Because the thing is, Javi has done a lot for the community.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just not my story with them.
Yeah.
Like, they thought and treated me.
They othered you a lot.
They othered me consistently.
Yeah.
And
he definitely did.
And never congratulated me on the work I did for the community ever. And I don't know, and yes, I did say oftentimes how amazing he was about some of the stuff that he was doing for people. And consistently made me feel like the black sheep of the drag scene in the city, because I wanted drag artists to make money.
Yeah.
For doing drag. Like, I rarely did things for free. And Javi said, this isn't what it's about.
It's about community.
And I would be like, yeah, it's also about, I'm trying to make a career out of this. I want to make it on Drag Race. I want to be a famous drag artist. And that wasn't their journey.
Yeah. Yeah, it was two very differing goals. And I wanted to make the money too. I just and we did for a little while in Grand Junction. We made some money.
Cute money.
Yeah.
But moving on from that rant, so they did the Pride Festival and whatever, and it was beautiful. And Dustin performed, and I've known Dustin for a very long time. Mm-hmm. My ex-husband was their drag mother for a while. Mm-hmm. We did hang out on several occasions. They used to come to like every single one of our drag queen karaoke's. Yeah. They came to a bunch of our shows. Yeah. Stuff like that. So I know them intimately. Yeah. I also, the thing is, I don't necessarily even actually have a problem with Dustin as much as the people that Dustin surrounded himself with. Mm-hmm. Back before transition was people who were really horrible to me. Yeah. I think their ex-partner and one of their ex-close friends went online and started calling me a rapist. Yeah. And started saying I did all of these horrible things, and like it was really bad. Yeah. So a lot of trauma associated with that person and the people they associated with. And now I know that Dustin isn't with that person anymore. Yeah. At all. But I had a lot. Yeah. That was a hard time in general. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That was difficult. Yes. Yeah. By all accounts. And I was not okay with it. Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. Having like interactions with a lot of the people that were on the episode and just kind of like trying to like replay how things went down and kind of how like your communications like ended with them and all that stuff. And yeah, there was lots of like infighting and stuff and like little dramas, and it seemed like there was always something new every week, or every time that we were like out doing something would happen and it would become a thing online, or someone would post something. And this is in a small city. Like this isn't like you know, I found that Portland drama, there's obviously more participants in it, but like with Grand Junction drama, there's also not a lot going on there. So the little like queer community that there is, if someone says something about someone, they're gonna know who it's about. Oh yeah. And yeah. Oh yeah. There was no escaping it. There were so many times when people were like called out by name in Grand Junction 2 on Facebook, and you would like the times too where you would be called out and then you would see like someone's like whole like friend list commenting about you or like saying things about you and they don't even know you. Mm-hmm. It's like, you know, like it did kind of like, I guess, prepare you for like the way that people handle things in Portland too. Well, it's so fast. Like, so I was fine with Camp Wanakiki because of that too. Because of Grand Junction, I was fine with Camp Wanakiki. Because of Grand Junction, I was fine with whenever it happened in Portland. And I have this rule in Portland, which people seem to not really appreciate. Yeah. If you name me online, I don't talk to you anymore. Mm. Like, I have no desire to. And people have been like, wait, that seems really inappropriate. I was like, people in Portland take to the internet before they will have a conversation in person.
That's the shitty thing. And I think that goes for anywhere that people do that. You need to talk to people in person rather than all of a sudden getting on to like call them out. Like how fucking cowardly is that too? Like you're showing your lack of ability to communicate with someone by doing that. You're also showing that you're just kind of being like shitty, you know? Like
yeah, absolutely.
And it I guess for the people that would say it to your face and have said it to their face, like good for you if you do that, then whatever. Like at least you're real on social media like you are in person. But a lot of the times people will, because they feel like they are like emboldened to and have like all of a sudden this like boost of like courage to do, you know, to like to call someone out, they'll do it over a keyboard and not to their face, you know. Talk to people, have conversations, have productive conversations.
Well, and it's happening to me right now, obviously, with like everything happening with local lounges. People have opinions and are posting stories related to it and not actually having any conversations with me in person. But getting off topic a little bit, I did want to talk about I think it's great. I do see, to get to more of the positive side, I do see a change in Dustin versus when I knew them before. I
do too, for sure.
I remember having a conversation with their mom about their transition and things like that way back in the day. I remember them being a lot more shy too, and so seeing this whole version of them is just kind of eye-opening. Because Junior, Dustin's caregiver, is actually a really close friend of mine. Like a really close friend of mine.
Believe it or not, I've known Junior since elementary school.
I know, it's just, we're like, oh, so you really knew these people. Yes,
I
knew the people.
Yeah, I really knew a lot of these people.
And so, and I love Junior to death. I do. He's one of my favorite people. He's one of the people I actually still keep in contact with from Grand Junction.
He's a very cool person.
Yeah, and so, I do see a massive change. And so listening to Dustin's story, which obviously I've heard, it was cool to see the change. And it's been years since I've seen them. I didn't see them my last year when I was in Grand Junction because they kind of just disappeared off the map because of the situations that they were involved in.
Yeah.
I think the last time I saw him was when he was like going up North Avenue or something like that, like just on the sidewalk. And
it had been a while for me too.
So Taylor, I remember a little, which I know probably sounds offensive, because there was a lot of people in Junction that we met at the time, and when we were doing drag and anything drag related, but their story was heartbreaking. Obviously, I knew Dustin's story. I did not know Taylor's story.
Yeah, I didn't fully know Taylor's story. I hadn't known them that well. They were always very sweet and nice when I had encounters with them. But yeah, it was really neat to see how different the three stories were.
It was. Taylor had the queer meetup. Which
those need to keep happening.
Which I do think that those need to keep happening. I actually think I remember somebody doing queer meetups. I don't know if it was Taylor or not, but I think I remember Caleb talking about it.
Yeah, those need to keep happening. They need to keep having things like those there.
Yeah.
Any kind of space, honestly. Just any kind of space where people can meet up, you know, that isn't just considered like an everyone bar, because we all know that's a thing. No bar wants to call themselves a gay bar in Grand Junction.
Yeah.
No one would ever do that while we were there. There was a gay bar there before we were able to like kind of go out, and but
Tenacious Brother.
Well, there was another one too that was like a club that was off of, I want to say it was off of North Avenue.
It was off of North Avenue.
Yeah.
It wasn't a queer bar though. I remember it. It was it was on 7th, I think.
I'm talking about years ago. like many years ago.
Oh.
It was like it was
Oh,
like called
yes.
Steel or something like
Yeah,
that.
that was up on North. Actually, I
Yeah.
don't remember that as a queer space, but people
Yeah.
did tell me that that was a queer space.
Yeah, that it was a space.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't actually remember the name of that. Oh my gosh!
Yeah.
Wow.
It was called I feel like it was Steel. It was some sort of metal. That's what I remember. It's like that was the name of the like gay club bar that used to be around back in the day.
Yeah, I remember Seth talking about it.
Yeah.
I actually did see Seth in the episode too.
Yeah. Seth and I think Kenneth is their name.
I think that's their partner's name.
Yeah. But no, it so there have been like queer establishments there before. It's they've either failed or I mean, I don't really know enough about the reasons why they're not there to like elaborate on it, but I don't know. If it's not a bar, then like maybe like a coffee shop, a space where people can like meet up, like a sober queer space there or something like that. Like anything that would be good for that community to kind of like come together and like just.
When I was on the Pride board, we talked about that a lot because people didn't want to come to our parties. They wanted to have more things. I remember one of the events I threw during Pride was like a discussion panel with POC. Yeah, it was called QPOC, I think is what it was called, for a Pride, like, little question and answer thing and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It was actually really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it had one trans person on it. It was great. It was a really good talk.
Yeah.
People had a lot of questions.
Yeah.
So going back to... So, by the way, listeners, we are going to make this a 2-part episode.
Yeah, there's a lot.
There's a lot, and we're not even halfway through the episode.
Yeah.
So, after that, they did start, then, of course, like, talking about, you know, the drag show and what that would mean and stuff like that. And I didn't realize this, but there are a lot of talented drag artists that do live in Grand Junction still.
Yeah.
Like Natalie.
Yeah.
And... not seeing her at all in the episode, I felt was like a miss. And I know it's not about that.
Yeah.
If the show's not about the local drag
it's not.
scene,
yeah.
But like not having the most, like what I would consider to be the most talented drag artist in that city.
Definitely.
Not being anywhere in it just feels like it was a missed opportunity.
Yeah, well, especially for a community that's so small, you know?
Yeah.
Like, even just seeing like a flash of her in the audience would have been nice. Same with Kenneth, you know, any member of the community that is like has been an entertainer there, you know, just seeing more of them would have been good. Yeah, and although it isn't about that, like we also think that our friend has also kind of been not treated the best since we left. So
no, from my understanding, there was a lot of negative moments. From my understanding, anyway.
Yeah.
So, I think that where I want to end this part of the episode is acknowledging that I think that this message was incredibly important for the city.
It was. It was incredibly important. And hopefully there'll be more people who are not like open to such a show because it's happening in Grand Junction. They will watch it.
Yes.
You know,
because one of my greatest achievements in my life was actually speaking in full drag at the Women's March in Grand Junction. And having those thousands of people, you know, actually probably not thousands, it's probably hundreds of people like listening and something like that to like this message. And I during my speech, I said, do you know that I said black trans women are being killed at a disproportionate rate to their, you know, cis counterparts and whatever I said. And I go, do you know, Grand Junction, that there is a large trans population that actually lives here? I was like, you just don't know it yet because I don't feel safe enough letting you know. Yeah. And this was like, what, 4 or 5 years ago at this point now? I said that on the microphone and I said it often at shows, and people never recognize that they did or didn't know. There was a meeting I had at the company I work for, because Hilltop has a lot of employees, and I said once, I was like, do you know that you have trans people working here? And actually, because he was in the show, Junior was actually one of the trans people who was working at Hilltop at the time. I was actually heavily, I was the person who did their name change. So they wouldn't get dead named, just from like all the systems that we
That's
had.
cool.
Yeah, like it came to me, and like when I was being asked about it, I was like, I will take care of this.
Yeah.
And got all of their information and everything updated into the system. Now, I don't know their experience being trans working for that company at all.
Yeah.
And I don't want to speak on it, but that is, it's people, even when I gave that speech to the victims advocates in the jail, and the people in the jail too, like I was talking about trans people, and I used Caitlyn Jenner because it was a hot topic at the time.
Yeah.
To help explain what trans was to all of these individuals who'd never even heard this term before. And a lot of them would be like, I don't know any trans people. I don't think I ever will. It's Grand Junction, Colorado.
Yeah.
I heard that so much. And I was like, you don't know who is trans and who's not. I had so many friends. This is the part that they didn't say a lot. And actually, it was never brought up in the episode. And I really want this to be clear. I had a lot of trans friends in Grand Junction.
Yeah.
A lot of them did not go to work presenting as they wanted to.
Yeah, that's true.
They would take it all off to go to work or to church.
Yep.
Or like they would hide completely who they were. And we did have a trans panel once, I think. It was offered through the school. I think Javi led it.
I remember. I feel like I remember that.
I remember that too, because I was offered to be on it as like the drag.
Yeah,
queen.
I remember attending that. Yeah, that was a good thing.
Yeah, that was a good panel. And trying to force this narrative out there into the public that this is who. This exists here, and to differentiate between drag queens and trans women.
Yeah,
like, and what that means for people, and
just to like educate people about it. And
yeah, it's actually a really, and I know that that's a very common story, like you hear in the Lifetime specials about what trans means and people hiding themselves. In Grand Junction, it was such a reality about hiding yourself.
It really was.
In all forms of your sexual orientation.
Oh, and if you were non-binary, oh my gosh, that
heavens.
Honestly, like non-binary was pretty unheard of at Grand Junction. Like, I'd say the closest to non-binary we got was people who like were in drag and exploring their gender identity and kind of, but we'd never really had anyone that openly identified as non-binary a lot of the time. I think I even used the term like gender fluid or gender queer when I came out, and people I didn't really like let my gender identity be known to like a lot of people when I was there, because I didn't want to have to constantly explain myself to people who like wouldn't understand it.
Right. And I remember when I finally, because my gender identity is by gender, when I finally found that term, people in Grand Junction didn't really get it, and they didn't really acknowledge it.
Yeah.
And even in Portland, people are still kind of bad about it, but like, because I use he, him, she, her pronouns, people often forget that I live underneath that umbrella as well. And in Grand Junction, like I said, it was like, but I didn't have to hide my gender identity because I am comfortable in my male presenting form.
Yeah.
Like, which I would do at work or going to the grocery store or things like that or whatever.
Yeah.
It was always the in-between that I would always feel super uncomfortable in public about. And I was never that guy that had nail polish or things in my hair, or wore makeup or any of those stuff. Like, when I went out and whatever, because I did not feel comfortable in makeup unless I was presenting completely femme.
Yeah.
Completely femme, or else I felt like I would get hate crimed.
Yeah. The only time I would ever put on makeup that wasn't like full drag makeup was when I was going out to like one of the bars that was very queer friendly, or gay friendly. It was gay friendly.
Yeah.
Gay and lesbian friendly.
Gay and lesbian. Not open that door.
Yeah.
So I do think that part of the show and the message of like trying to show people that trans and non-binary people exist, or what did Taylor say? What was the term? Future
neutral.
Future neutral.
Yes.
Which sounds like very much a term from somebody who's at least a decade younger than me. that makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah.
That future neutral. And what that means for people, because gender still, it's a societal construct that is very rigid.
Yeah.
And even in Portland, even though it's not as rigid, it's still something that exists, right? We have to define it so much so people can feel comfortable with the language and communication.
Yeah.
So I think that the show did do a great job in that, and I wanted to really highlight that, at least for myself.
Yeah. No, I think it did a great job too at all of that. I liked the moment with Dustin and his mom when they were talking, and he's like, I need to correct you right now, but pronouns.
Yes.
And
I thought that was really good.
It's a good thing for people of that city to like look at and be like, hey, this is important to people. And, don't be an asshole. Don't deliberately use the wrong pronouns for people. Right. Or not be courteous of what people's preferences are for their pronouns, Like, it's just, I don't know. I think more people in that area need to be just like a little bit more empathetic and kinder towards people who are different,
I think, yeah.
Not beat them down to where they want to leave, or are on the verge of killing themselves.
And the other note with that too is somebody said to me before, I told this to Donna yesterday, somebody said to me before we moved away that they said that me and Donna wouldn't survive outside of Grand Junction because the world's a lot harder than the way it is in Grand Junction. The thing is, I think that people from Portland would have some of our friends in Portland would have a difficult time in Grand Junction because of the sensitivity and awareness that got built up from having a queer bubble. And I know that we all know that those hate crimes exist and those bigotry and homophobia and transphobia exists and things like that in other parts of the world. But when you're like living it from every second, every day, from the way you speak to you answer the phone, to your doctor's appointment, to your grocery stores, to you like seeing all the Blue Lives Matter and Confederate flags and stuff like that from the second you just leave your front door, like we built bubbles around ourselves in Grand Junction that were very queer and safe for us to live in. But you weren't always in that bubble because you did have a doctor's appointment or dentist appointment or had a meeting or going to City Market, or just even walking across the campus. You were always in the negative side, the thing that people yell about in Portland consistently. We were always there.
Yeah.
Always in it. Always fighting back. Just by mere existence.
Well, and that's not to say that, extreme transphobia and homophobia doesn't happen here. We're not trying to like undermine that because it does happen in
it does happen here.
Yeah, because if you wander just outside of Portland, then you're in a lot of those areas where, people who have those views, like we're kind of enclosed by a lot of those mindsets. But yes, in Grand Junction, it was just a lot more overt, and you definitely knew you were in the minority there at all times. You knew that you were in the minority.
They would never let you forget it.
They wouldn't let you forget it at all.
Ooh, I think that's where we're gonna end that at.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody, for listening to part 1 of this episode.
Yeah, thank you, and we will be back next week with part 2, where we may even have an interview for you with some of the people that were featured in this episode of We're Here.
So, bye.
Tune in. Bye.